her sisters had any way of knowing that. She'd kept her own counsel back then and dealt with the anguish in private. Only her beloved grandmother had known the details, and she'd honored Joe's wishes never to discuss what had happened. "You may as well give in and do this gracefully," Maggie chimed in on another extension, dismissing Joe's protests. "Yes," Melanie added. "Don't make us come up to Boston to get you." Joe's chuckle turned into a sob. It was too late to regret her part in insisting that each of her sisters go to Rose Cottage after their lives had fallen apart. How could she explain that it was different for her without divulging the secret she'd kept from them all these years? Then the fussing would really begin in earnest. "I can't," she whispered. It was one thing for Ashley, Maggie, and Melanie to make new lives for themselves in Virginia, but Rose Cottage was where Joe's heart had been broken the first time. How could she go there to heal now, when there were so many ghosts from the past to be faced in that place? Visiting for a day or two had been difficult enough. Staying any longer? Risking a chance encounter with the man she'd once loved so deeply would be torment. "I'd like to know why not," Ashley demanded. "If you can't take the time off work, quit." "Work's not the issue," Joe said miserably, though it didn't surprise her that it was the first thing her big sister had thought of. Even now, with her workaholic tendencies held in check by her new husband, Ashley was still driven. "Then what is?" Ashley asked. "I'm better off here," Joe said, knowing it was a weak response, but unwilling to admit the truth. None of them knew how crazy in love she'd been during that last summer she'd spent at Rose Cottage. They'd all been busy with summer jobs back in Boston that year. She'd spent the entire summer alone with her grandmother and with Pete. She'd been so sure Pete Catlett was the one. She'd believed him when he said he loved her, believed it enough to make love with him, believed it well enough when he'd promised to be waiting when she returned the following year. But even before the last of the autumn leaves had fallen, her grandmother had casually mentioned that Pete had gotten married. A few months later, there had been mention of a baby, too. A boy. She and her grandmother had both maintained the pretense that Cornelia Lindsay was doing little more than passing along local gossip about an acquaintance. But Joe had heard the compassion underlying the words, the awareness that what she was telling Joe would devastate her. Joe had felt utterly betrayed, especially because the young man she'd loved and trusted hadn't even had the courage to tell her himself. Not that that would have made the pain any easier to bear, but it would have reassured her that she hadn't misjudged him entirely, that she had mattered to him, at least for a time. It had taken her years to find the courage to risk her heart again. And just look what had happened. The same damn thing. Or something that felt a whole lot like it. No, Virginia was definitely not the place for her. She needed to stay right here in Boston and bury herself in work. She liked her job as a landscape designer. She had her friends, even if none of them were as close as the sisters who were insisting she come to Rose Cottage so they could hover over her. "I can't come to Virginia," she said again, her tone flat, and she hoped unequivocal. Melanie heaved an exaggerated sigh. "I guess that means we'll leave in the morning, right, Ash and Maggie?" "I can be ready by 5 a.m., Ashley said. "How about the rest of you?" "Absolutely," Melanie responded. "Guys," Joe protested, with what she knew was wasted breath. They weren't going to be satisfied until they'd seen her for themselves, babied her for a few days or weeks.